All right, so everybody, thanks so much for listening. We have a returning guest, Steve West from, well, my former neck of the woods down in South Florida in Boca Raton. He's in Delray Beach, of course, but they're right next to each other, so they're brother-sister relationship there. But Steve is the founder of the InCrowd. It's a great organization down in the Palm Beach County area. We do have a lot of listeners from Florida in general and from that neck of the woods. So we're grateful to have Steve back on the program. Steve West, thanks so much for coming back on. Greatly appreciate your time today.
Yeah, and I appreciate being here, and we've known each other for a long time. And I just want to point out to people who aren't from this area, you're from the rich section, Boca Raton.
Well, not anymore.
Okay.
Now I'm in Central Florida, so we're surrounded by tourists and people from all over the world that don't know how to drive usually, but that's par for the course in Central
Well,
Florida.
live on the reputation, and nobody knows how to drive down here. Judy and I have arguments. Is it the teenagers that are going to kill you, or the old people that are, can't see over the windshield?
It's either the old people or the kids from FAU or Lynn that are going to
Right.
kill somebody. Anyways, we'll move forward. And I haven't seen Steve since the pandemic started. Well, before the pandemic started, I should say. So I'm grateful again to see you, Steve. But let's kick this around. A lot of people want to know, what is the InCrowd? Talk about that.
Okay. It's pretty simple. We're a bunch of volunteers, a lot of important people or decision makers in Palm Beach County that have come together behind the idea of equal opportunity and justice for everybody in the county. So a lot of people, especially minority people, especially Black and brown people, but Hispanics and Muslims and Bangladeshis, a lot of people don't have equal opportunity in this very, very well-to-do county. A lot of people can't buy a gallon of gas to get to work on Monday morning. They don't have the money to get to work. It's or put food in their stomach, or medicine, or clothes for their children to go to school. Poverty is endemic, and now that inflation's going up, it's even worse. So we're about helping people with what they need now, and in the long run, helping people to better their condition so they are able to get out of poverty, fend for themselves, and improve their situation in life.
Can you tell the people how many people are involved as far as the InCrowd? I know everybody is welcome as far as in Palm Beach County, but how many people do you have that really get involved as far as the InCrowd goes?
Well, we have people outside Palm Beach County helping. The focus, though, on where we're working is Palm Beach County. And frankly, Palm Beach County is our laboratory. The need that we have in Palm Beach County, every county in the United States has that need, people who do not have equal opportunity. So this is our laboratory. I want to develop a system that can be communicated elsewhere in the country. And that's what we're doing here. We're using state-of-the-art philosophy, technology, and really making it so it's duplicable anywhere in the country. And anybody who wants to stand up and take their time and their effort to bring people together behind creating equal opportunity, we want to give them a guide to how to do that. But right now, we're doing it here, and we're doing it successfully.
So there's so many people in Palm Beach County, in the state of Florida, and around the country and around the world that need help. As far as Florida goes, can you talk about all the things that you're doing to help these people in need around Palm Beach County?
Sure. There's a couple of programs that we have. One is called Building Bridges, and Building Bridges has two lanes to it. We're building bridges between the haves and the have-nots, between the people who have sufficient resources and people who have insufficient resources. And so the idea of the first lane is bring people across the bridge with ideas, with merchandise, with anything that people need right now in order to better their condition. So if people in a community are hungry, if the community needs beautification, if they need better medical care or education, all the quality of life issues. We work with the frontline organizations to support them to do the work they're already doing in the community. But what we've been able to develop is a network of literally several hundred individuals who are leaders in the community and organizations that are working towards the same goal. So everybody has the same destination in mind: equal opportunity, equal justice for everybody. And going for that goal, we each go down our own lane. So we work, for instance, with the food bank or food banks. We work with farms that grow food and allow people to glean, or community farms or community gardens, or any way that people can get access to food, either by growing it themselves, gleaning, getting it donated by a food bank. All of those people have the same specific purpose within the purpose. And so what we try to do is network those people so they are working in cooperation with each other, in communication with each other, rather than seeing resources being scarce and they're competing with each other. What we have been able to show in actual fact is that there's an abundance in this county. There's plenty of food. So much is wasted. There's plenty of volunteers. There's plenty of things that people think we don't have enough of. And I have a little story that I tell people, which I think sums it up very well. I've been involved in international development in Sri Lanka for 40 plus years. And with the organization, it's called Sarvodaya Shramadana, which is they call this the grandfather of development. So I've had marvelous, wonderful teacher in how you do develop. And one of the volunteers decades ago in India went to a very poor village. In fact, it was desperately poor. And he went in and he said, "What's your problem? What can we do to help you?" Which is what we ask when we come into a village. And the people said, "We have a problem that our fathers had, our grandfathers had, as far back as our history goes. The problem is that in India, the monsoons take place half a year, and we have too much rain. And the other half a year, we have drought. So also, we have rocky soil. And so if we want to grow enough food to last for the year, it's impossible because soil is not friendly to crops." So they said, "Well, we can't do anything about it. Our children are leaving, and those that stay are going to have the same destiny forever." So he stroked his little chin, his little beard. He looked down at his shoes. And they said, "What can we do about it?" So he strokes his beard, looks at his shoes, and says, "The solution is at your feet." Now, these people didn't know what he was talking about, and they asked, what do you mean?" So he said, "Look, you have rocky soil. You have, if you look over there about 100 yards in the distance, you have a depression in the earth." He said, "All you have to do is everybody in the community get together, take the rocks, put them in the depression. You'll have soil that will grow food better, and you'll have a reservoir that will hold the water." It wasn't 2 years before this became a sufficient community. And a few years later, one of the most successful communities in Kerala state, in that part of India. So I go by this little example, because it doesn't matter what somebody tells me. I say the solution is at our feet, and it always is. So if you don't have enough food, and you then take into account the waste of the food and the food that goes rotten in the fields, and all the resources that aren't being allocated because it's not a priority. If you take into consideration a community that's dirty and doesn't have paint on the outside of the buildings, and the solution's at your feet. And so we're doing these projects, like with one of the county agencies, where we get volunteers who come to paint. We get the agency to buy paintbrushes and rollers and paint, and other volunteers from outside the community and inside the community to do the painting. And the solution is at our feet. And it's the same thing with food. It's the same thing with any of these issues, even housing, which is, so we were talking about before the show started, but even housing, which is now the most insidious problem because people are losing their houses, sleeping out on the street in their cars and in shelters. And it's affecting everybody, even middle-class people, because the ability to pay rent or to pay your mortgage or buy a new house has taken so many people out of the housing market, and people from the outside, from Europe, Asia, people coming in, buying houses, buying properties as investments, and that's forcing people into their cars. So some problems are harder than others, but there's solutions to all of these problems, and all we have to do is be creative, think of moving the rocks and creating the reservoir. So that's one of the major things that we do. But I've diverted from the answer to your question, which is about building bridges. Building bridges, so we bring stuff over the bridge, philosophically over the bridge. And we have found new sources of food supply. We've found people who are moving, for instance. They want to empty their house. The real estate broker says, yeah, I got to empty this house. I got to throw all this stuff in the garbage. So we empty the house for them, free of charge. Volunteers do it. Sometimes the sheriff or the police departments will haul the merchandise into a community that needs it. We have everything from furniture to kitchen goods to diapers, anything that you can think of that were in that house. We also have clutter clearers, that's an industry down here. People want to get rid, have so much stuff in that closet, so much stuff in the garage. And also we just, without clutter clearers or real estate brokers, we put out a call to a community and say, your clutter is someone else's treasure. And when people see that without any expense whatsoever, nothing is taken off the top, without any middleman, that what we have is that an item goes from a person who doesn't need it anymore. They have 3 toasters in the garage and they just bought another one. Get out the clutter, and it's a treasure to people who don't have toasters. So the people on the one side of the bridge who are giving are just as happy, satisfied as the people who are receiving, because I did one of these in my neighborhood, and the people who came to the garage to put their stuff in, almost to a person, would say, I am so happy to be able to get rid of this junk and give it to somebody who can really use it. Now, one more aspect I want to talk to, because it is the bottom line. Giving people something, stuff, is a handout, and a handout perpetuates the condition, or can, in many cases, perpetuate the condition. So it's all tied together. The ability for people to improve their condition, which I'll talk about in the next section, which is called the InCrowd University, the ICU. People now who are speaking Spanish and having a lot of trouble with English have a Zoom course they can go on that is conversational English as a second language. And the instructor gears it to the person and the situation. So if, let's say, a group of gardeners, when they start learning English, the things they're going to start with are trees and shrubs and limbs and front of my house and back of my house, and build from there. But I have a personal experience with the former gardeners in our neighborhood who came in here from Guatemala speaking zero English. And I did a class with them in a gazebo outside my house. And they learned a little bit of English. I'm not a teacher and never pretended to be, but we got little books, little like kids books with ball in it, and just little objects. So we say pelota, ball, and so that they're just working at the two houses next to me. That they're not working in the community. They have their own business. They just bought this huge truck. And they have their insurance, and they're in business, and they're really doing very well. So just somebody caring and taking a little time to help them to get this new ability, they were able to start to understand and communicate with their customers rather than just not understanding, screwing up a job, or making, having to get a boss in to translate. So in the ICU, the things that some of the things we do, I can just give you examples, but we have remedial math for ninth graders, for junior high going into high school, and for high school going into college, where if they miss something, we try to help them level the playing field. Like, let's say a junior high didn't get fractions, just didn't understand, whatever. So they can have remedial math on fractions. And then when they get into high school the next year, they'll be on a more level playing field, and the same with college. But we don't want people just to get to sufficiency. We want people to get to be the best that they can be, really realize themselves. And so we have a course that exemplifies that, and that's called STEM, the STEM Stars. And these are kids recommended by the principal of the school or by a person who can make a recommendation, who want to go into a STEM career. It could be medicine, they want to be a nurse or a doctor, could be engineering, math. So we have right now we have 15 of them, individual tutor mentors. These are people in the field or in graduate school, and they work one-on-one as mentors, and they help them not only with their work, but they also help them with the aspiration to keep it alive. A Supreme Court justice who just was sworn in, she told a story about being in Harvard and really being discouraged and ready to quit. And some just strange lady walked up to her on the street and said, "Just keep it up, just keep it up. You're on a good path." And that kept her on. She gives that credit for keeping her on the path. So all of these different subjects. We have community gardening. We have master gardeners that teach how to plant either a victory garden or a community garden, and help them along to help the garden grow. They even come out live to get the garden started in a community. And then the last one I'll give you as an example, but there are infinite number of courses that we can give, anything that helps a person improve themselves. But this one I like especially. We have a deal with a restaurant chain, and they need good servers, good chefs that are not only trained, but have a good attitude and really respect their job. So we have an incredible teacher for the servers who's been a server for 14 years. And when you sit at his table in the restaurant, you just feel like you're at home, and you give him a big tip. So he's teaching people, and he's created a course book for this. He's teaching people not only how to take an order, bring it to the kitchen, and slap it back on the table, but how to really respect the job, enjoy the job while you're there, and enjoy and interact in an appropriate way with the customers. So it's more inspiration than technical. But the great thing about this is at the end of that course, anybody who wants to has a job waiting for them.
Wow, that's incredible. You're doing really amazing work. And that's why we have you on, because we need people all around the country, not just in the state of Florida, that are doing this kind of work, because there's people in all different backgrounds all around the country that really need help. And you're doing this amazing work. Again, for people that want to find more about Steve and his organization, definitely check out the InCrowd and it's the THEIN dash crowd CROWD.org. Definitely put all that correctly, or else you're not going to get there. You could Google it too, I guess. But
And there's get in touch, information. So if they want to email or call, we want to expand this to the country, but to any place that wants it. And again, everything that we do is without a charge of any kind. But what we want to do is help people to be able to develop things like this in their own community.
So as we go to the end of the interview, we've talked about many different things throughout this interview. What do you hope, Steve, people learn from our interview today?
One is that the solution's at our feet. Right. Two is that they look inside themselves and see if they care. If you care, express it. Don't just sit there and say the world's screwed up, or we have to put up with all of this horrible nonsense that's going on. Don't be a watcher, be a doer. And if it's not this, do something, help one neighbor. See somebody buying cat food in front of you on the line, an old person that is your neighbor, and they don't have a cat. But do something that will help. Be active, and you will feel better. Your world will look a little bit brighter. And enough of us do it, the world will be brighter, because the turn that's happened in the last 5 years has been a change in attitude. And most of us, including myself, thought this could never happen in this country, where we'd be so divided and hateful. Now that attitude is reversible, but it takes a critical mass of people. It takes you and me and the people listening to this to just get up and do something, make yourself feel better, make your world a brighter place, light one candle.
Right. So do you guys, and again, for people that want to check it out again, and I'll read this one more time, it is the InCrowd, the THEIN-CROWD.org. You got to put the dash in. So definitely do that. Is there any kind of social media presence? How can people contact you? Give us all that stuff, Steve, if you could.
Sure. Thank you. There's a website. The website, again, is done by volunteers. We have a 4-person team who are professionals who are phenomenal. The in-crowd.org is the website access. It's www.thein-crowd.org. So that's easy. If you remember one, you got them both. And you'll see a website that really goes deeper into what we're doing. There's one other element that that I wasn't able to get to, if I may. Yeah. I'd like to, because it's a very important element, and it rounds out, it supports the building bridges, supports everything that we're doing. One of the things that's scarce is volunteers. Ask any organization or any community leader or anybody who's doing anything. You got 200 people in your club, 20 of them come to the meetings, and 4 of them are active. Wow. So what we're trying to do, we work directly in the underserved communities here. We've got access through county agencies to work directly with the communities. We also work with the frontline organizations like the Urban League and so forth, all the organizations that are already situated in the communities, know what they're doing, are trusted by the communities, and can get something done. We don't want to reinvent the wheel and do what the Urban League is doing. What we do is we have built a platform to have volunteers available to the communities and the organizations. And that sounds like that having volunteers is a scarce thing, that it's very difficult to get a volunteer. So I targeted places where people have to volunteer. One of them is the public schools in Palm Beach County. We need every student to graduate has to give 20 hours of volunteer community service.
Wow, 20 hours, that's nothing.
It's nothing, but so a lot of the schools have the minimum of 70 hours, and the kids who are really motivated, who love to do this and or who want to get their college credentials built up. They put in hundreds of hours. So, but I have access now to several thousand volunteers. That is every student in the high school and junior high schools of Palm Beach County. And they have to volunteer, like it or not. And most of them like it. They have to do it. So nobody thought of this. They have this system in the school to have volunteers, to have, you have to hand in papers, you put in your 20 hours, but there was no system, there was nobody in charge. The kids would just find something to do it. So I created over the last year a system for that.
Wow.
Presented it to the public schools, and we now have a person in the public schools who's in charge of the guidance counselors, who's responsible and not our liaison, but our volunteer. And what they do is when they introduce this to each year and each semester to the guidance counselors. The guidance counselors can pass the information down to the students and teachers in their school. But it's better than that, because we have a list of the different quality of life issues. There's about a dozen quality of life issues I've used as an example so far. Community beautification and nutrition. So a student will look at this list of a dozen items and say, I'm interested in community beautification. They click the community beautification, and we have a list running down of the different organizations that do that. Some that do painting of the community, some cleanup, some planting flower gardens. In the food, we have a list of vegetable gardens in all the communities in Palm Beach County that people have in their communities or churches or empty fields. So we have access to these volunteers who now have access to be able to find something that they really like to do or know something about or want to learn something about. So a student now gets the category, they go on, they shop the different people, let's say in the food category, and they find the one that they like, let's say the Gleaners, and they have direct access to them. So we have no time spent on having to convince anybody. They have the phone number of the person who is the contact person for that organization for volunteers, or the head of the organization. They have the phone number, they have the email address, and best of all, they have a direct link to the website. So they can, before speaking to anybody, they can shop the website, they can pick who they want, and then when they call, they're dead ready to volunteer. Now here is the real kicker to this program. We have something that we just started at the beginning of the February that's called flash events. So when everybody has postal drives, the post office picks up cans and delivers them to the post office, and they load up trucks, and the trucks go to the communities that need food, non-perishable food.
Right.
I started that myself, New York, 30 years ago, and it's gone nationwide, and it's something that's dear to my heart. Anyway, we were called to help to get volunteers. They needed 50 volunteers to unload the trucks and reload the trucks going to the communities. In 3 days, we had 58 volunteers for them.
Wow.
Every one of them showed up, because flash events, in my system, we called the head of the guidance counselors, who approves of the event and calls the or communicates with all of the guidance counselors and says, here's a flash event. And the guidance counselors tell the teachers, the students, and so, and this was the last week of school, mind you.
Wow.
So we have 58 students, all of which filled out a form on the website, signed up. 58 signed up, 58 showed up. And the response from the students and the community organizations like the food bank that was running this, everything was like perfect. Everybody enjoyed what they were doing, worked hard, and the kids got their credits for this. So that's really very important. And one of the things that we're going to share when we go out public, it's a simple thing to do, and it really brings in volunteers. We're now working with returning citizens to get other people who are required to do public service. And sometimes even the judges, instead of putting somebody in prison, they'll have them do 100 hours of community service. So through the county agencies and the individual organizations that are doing this, we have these people all just anxious to do the community service and get their debts paid off. So that is very important, and I'm glad. Thank you for giving me another opportunity to put that in.
Again, for people listening, the thein-crowd.org. Definitely check it out. Steve West, you're a legend around Palm Beach County.
Legend in my own mind.
In his own mind, yeah. Legend in New York, legend in Boca, well, not Boca Raton, but Boca and Delray, Palm Beach County in general. Anyways, we'll stop giving you love. We've given you enough love throughout this interview, but thanks so much. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thank you.